He was just trying to get home with a backpack full of textbooks and a phone at 2% battery. Then a neighbor called the cops, saying he looked suspicious. Minutes later, 5 squad cars surrounded him. Guns drawn, commands screamed. He raised his hands and said, "I live right there." But what the body cam caught next, no one was prepared to see. Before we deep dive into this interesting story, subscribe to our channel, and tell us where are you watching from. Share in the comments below. In a forgotten corner of Florence County, South Carolina, the sun peeled back from the peeling aluminum of a trailer roof, its glare bouncing off broken car windows and old soda cans scattered in the dirt. Inside one of those trailers, number 17, barely standing on its cinder block base, 16-year-old Malik Jefferson hunched over a second-hand laptop with a spiderweb crack down its screen. The whirring of a broken oscillating fan filled the room, the kind of background noise that went ignored until it stopped. Outside, 2 men argued about rent and stolen tools. Their voices bled through the trailer's paper-thin walls, a daily intrusion Malik barely registered anymore. He sat cross-legged on the floor of the closet, legs numb, surrounded by old laundry baskets and crumpled Waffle House receipts. The dim glow from the screen reflected in his eyes. The code was messy, too many commented out lines, inconsistent indentations. But it worked. Every hour he spent here, wrestling through JavaScript and Python, was a quiet rebellion against everything stacked against him. The Wi-Fi signal he used came from a neighbor's router, open and unprotected, though painfully slow. Sometimes it dropped out mid-download, and Malik would just sit, staring at the frozen screen, teeth clenched, but it was still faster than the school's shared computers, where kids mostly Googled lyrics, or tried to play browser games when the teachers weren't watching. His fingers danced across the keyboard. Malik wasn't building just any app, he was building Think Fast, a math-focused speed game that tested reaction times and logic, with fast-paced questions and increasingly difficult levels. Not only did it teach, it adjusted to the user's patterns, recognizing weak points and tailoring new rounds accordingly. It wasn't pretty. The UI was basic, black and white, but it worked. That app wasn't just a passion project, it was a lifeline. Malik's mother, Aisha, worked janitorial double shifts at the county hospital. She left before sunrise and came home exhausted, her knees stiff from mopping floors and scrubbing away blood she'd rather not ask about. She always kissed him goodnight though. Always.
His father? That was a mystery best left unopened.
All Malik knew was that the man had walked out when Malik was 5, and no one had seen him since. Make something they can't ignore, Malik whispered to himself, something he said often now. He didn't believe the world would hand him anything. But if he made something undeniable, maybe it wouldn't matter. At Dunbar High, Malik stood out for all the wrong reasons. Cheap clothes, beat-up shoes, and the habit of reading during lunch, instead of playing basketball or hanging out in the parking lot. The worst part wasn't the insults, it was the snickers. Quiet, shared looks, like who does this kid think he is? They didn't say it outright, but the vibe was loud. Black kids from trailer parks don't build apps. One afternoon, Malik explained binary numbers to a classmate who had trouble with decimals. He used bottle caps as a visual aid, moving them in patterns to demonstrate on-off positions. A nearby teacher overheard. She walked over slowly, arms crossed. "What's this about?" she asked. "Just showing him how binary," Malik started. She cut him off. "Malik, this isn't a gifted class. Don't confuse the other students." He blinked, stunned. The classmate looked away, uncomfortable. "Stay in your lane, Malik," the teacher added, her voice like ice over pavement. Then she turned and walked off like she'd just closed a file. He didn't tell his mother about it. What would be the point? It wouldn't change anything. That night, Malik returned to the closet. The fan had stopped working entirely, and the sweat pooled at the small of his back. Still, he typed on. There was a contest, something buried deep in an online forum he'd found weeks ago. The South Carolina State STEM Innovation Fair. Submissions closed in 48 hours. He had nearly forgotten about it until now. The prize, statewide recognition, scholarship interviews, and a potential contract with the Department of Education for app development. But he wasn't even sure he was eligible. His school didn't have a STEM club. There were no advisors, no mentors. Still, he checked the fine print. Open to all students aged 14-18 residing in South Carolina. That included him. Barely. He knew they wouldn't take a kid like him seriously, not with his school, his zip code, his last name. So he created a fake email, mjeftech97, protonmail.com, stripped of any references to race, school, or income. Just code.
Just merit. Just data.
He stared at the application page, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The field asked for a summary of his project. He typed, "Think Fast is an adaptive mathematics application designed to accelerate logic development in underserved youth populations through gamified speed exercises and data-responsive challenges." He paused, then added, "Built independently." He hesitated on the next part. "Do you have a faculty advisor?" There was a red asterisk beside it. He typed, "No." Then, under team members, he wrote, "Just me." His hands trembled as he uploaded the typed A key file of the app and attached screenshots. He cleaned up the CSS just one last time, changed the background to gray, more modern, and removed a bug that had been making the score tracker flash. He tested it once, twice, again, and then he hit submit. For a long moment, the loading bar spun. The fan buzzed once and died. Then the page confirmed submission, and Malik let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Outside the closet, the world was unchanged. Loud neighbors, cheap ramen simmering on the stove, flickering kitchen light. But inside that cramped, sweaty space, something shifted. The app had left the trailer. It was out there now, in inboxes and review queues. It might be laughed at. It might be ignored. But it was real. He shut the laptop and leaned back against a pile of old textbooks, heart pounding louder than the outside noise. Just as he closed his eyes, Malik's phone buzzed. It was an email. A strange one. "Dear Mr. Jefferson, we've received your submission to the 2025 STEM Innovation Fair. Our preliminary team has flagged your project for possible early review. Expect updates within 72 hours. Malik blinked. Early review? Was that good or bad? He stared at the glowing screen. Suddenly, the air felt thinner, and not because of the heat. He didn't know it yet, but his name and his app were already being talked about in rooms he wasn't supposed to be in. Malik had just unknowingly submitted the first Black-developed project ever flagged for early review in the history of the South Carolina State STEM Fair. And not everyone reviewing it would be happy about it. At the South Carolina Department of Education headquarters in Columbia, the conference room lights buzzed overhead like old vending machines. Laptops lined the long mahogany table where the State STEM Innovation Review Board was convening for their quarterly shortlist session. The mood was brisk, stale coffee, banter laced with fatigue, the usual suspects. The stack of digital applications had been narrowed from nearly 300 to 42. The board now had 3 hours to cut that list in half before finalists would be selected for live demos. "Next up," said Todd McAllister, the 61-year-old STEM chair with silver eyebrows and a thick Midlands drawl. He tapped the spacebar on his laptop, and a profile loaded onto the projector. Entry 0316. Think Fast. Submitted by Malik Jefferson, Dunbar High School, Florence County. Silence. Someone chuckled. "Not the friendly kind." "Florence County?" muttered one of the reviewers, a man in his early 40s wearing a Clemson fleece and khakis. "That's the district where the library had to crowdfund toilet paper last fall." A woman leaned back in her chair. "Isn't Dunbar the school where that teacher got suspended for grading essays with emojis?" "Yup," someone else quipped. "I thought it shut down." McAllister squinted. "Well, it's still standing, apparently. Kid says he built a math logic game that adapts to individual learning speeds. Adaptive gamification. Claims he coded it solo." "On what?" "A calculator." More laughter. The mood in the room shifted from judgment to dismissal. One judge scanned the submission metadata and clicked his tongue. Free Proton Mail account. Low-res screenshots. App build is .app only. No iOS version. No GitHub link. The critique rolled in like a tide. Buggy UI. Inconsistent error handling. No documentation. No faculty advisor attached. Just one name. Just one district. Just one long shot. Except for Jillian Royce. She sat quietly at the far end of the table, 27 years old, and barely 2 years into her position as a volunteer junior developer liaison. Her hoodie sleeves were pulled over her hands. She'd been scanning Malik's code since the entry hit her inbox at midnight 2 days ago. Something about it made her double take. "Can we actually open the app?" she asked. Voice even. Todd looked over. "Why?" She hesitated. "Because he might be onto something."
More scoffs.
Jillian ignored them and clicked the app demo link on her laptop. The screen opened into a grayscale dashboard with no splash art, no branding, just a blinking start button and a timer bar. She tapped a few answers into the math speed round. The app responded instantly, no lag. "It's ugly," someone said flatly. "But fast," Jillian murmured. "And it recognizes my failure points." After I got that fraction wrong, it started feeding me equivalent questions at half-time intervals. "It's learning." Another reviewer rolled her eyes. "Or glitching." Jillian sat up straighter. "It's not. Look at the code tree. He's using conditional if-then loops linked to error detection and categorization. Not stolen. Not cloned. This is raw logic built from scratch." Todd raised an eyebrow. "Jillian, we're not here to hand out sympathy trophies. We need market viability, presentation, scalability. We're also supposed to foster innovation," she shot back, "especially from places where it's not supposed to grow." The room quieted. She added, "You can tell he's self-taught. He made mistakes. But he made something real. Something intended to help kids who think they're too poor to be smart. I don't care if the UI is basic. The engine's impressive. That alone warrants round 2. The room stirred. Jillian locked eyes with McAllister, who exhaled sharply through his nose. "Fine," he grunted. "Flag it as conditional potential. We'll forward it with the batch. But if we get even a whiff of charity narrative, we yank it." Jillian nodded but said nothing more. Her eyes lingered on Malik's photo. Grainy, half-shadowed, uploaded in poor lighting. A teenage boy with untrimmed hair, wearing a hoodie, staring at the camera like he expected the world to laugh. Back in Florence County, Malik was under the kitchen sink, fiddling with a rusted pipe with his mom's worn-out wrench. Water had been leaking for 2 days now, and Aisha couldn't afford a plumber. "Hand me the towel," he called out. His mom tossed it over and said, "You should be studying, baby." "I am," he replied without irony. Truth was, he hadn't checked his emails since submitting Think Fast. A part of him had filed it away under "never gonna happen." It wasn't false humility. It was just how things usually went for boys like him. Bright enough to dream, invisible enough to be forgotten. He tightened the seal, tested the drip, and stood up. Just as he turned to wash his hands, his phone buzzed. He picked it up. The subject line read, "Congratulations. You've been selected as a semi-finalist for the South Carolina STEM Innovation Fair." Malik blinked. His hands, covered in pipe grime, trembled slightly. He read it again. And again. His mom noticed the change in his expression. "What's wrong?" He swallowed. I think they picked me. The app. For the competition." She raised a brow. "What, like a prize?" He nodded slowly. "Round 2. They're inviting me to demonstrate. Think Fast." Aisha's face broke open. Part wonder, part confusion. "You're telling me these people want to see what you made in that busted closet?" He smiled. "A little." But when he got to school the next day, the atmosphere was less celebratory. Word had traveled fast, not because the school was proud, but because they were baffled. The principal called him into the office. Mr. Green, a tall, balding man with glasses too small for his wide face, tapped his pen slowly as Malik entered. "So, this app thing, the state competition." "Yes, sir." Green tapped again. "You submitted it without any school sponsor, without a faculty recommendation." Malik nodded. "I didn't think I needed one." "Well, technically you don't," Green said, "but it puts us in an odd position. You're representing Dunbar. There's a certain decorum expected." Malik stayed quiet. The principal added, "Don't get your hopes up too high. These kinds of events often lean towards students with backing, resources, connection." "I didn't expect to win," Malik replied. "I just wanted to be heard." Green studied him, then sighed. "Good luck, Malik." The words sounded less like encouragement and more like a preamble to failure. That night, Malik uploaded a cleaner build of Think Fast and shared the demo link with a handful of friends. One of them, a gamer known for TikTok challenges, decided to stream it live, making jokes while fumbling with equations on screen. Within an hour, the clip hit 10,000 views, and then people weren't laughing at the game. They were laughing at Malik. Screenshots of his login screen, his blurry photo, the misspelled label Florence District, began circulating on Twitter. Commenters piled in with insults. "Did a 5th grader design this? Looks like the Dollar Tree version of Duolingo. Who TEF is Malik Jefferson and why he got my screen looking like Windows 95? The hashtag ghetto code began trending locally. A meme emerged with Malik's yearbook photo pasted over an old calculator. Some users were crueler. One posted, This what happens when you give free Wi-Fi to trailer kids. Malik stared at the screen, numb. He had wanted visibility. He hadn't expected this. He closed the laptop. The fan sputtered to life as if mocking him. Down the hall, his mother was watching her favorite church live stream, oblivious. She called out, "You okay, baby?" He forced his voice steady. "Yeah. Just tired." He looked back at the screen. The digital storm began, with a whisper. A tweet? No caption. Just a blurry screenshot of the ThinkFast app's opening screen. And the caption, "My man made this on a microwave." Ghetto code. Within the hour, ghetto code was trending across the southeast. By morning, it was viral. Malik Jefferson's face, taken from the Dunbar High student portal, poorly cropped and lit by a yellow fluorescent glare, had been photoshopped onto everything from floppy disks to Etch-a-Sketch screens. The app's login screen, with its grayscale layout and no-frills fonts, became the internet's new chew toy.
"You really submitted this to the state?" One tweet read.
"This app got 205 trauma," joked another. Memes flooded in. Think fast? More like Blink trash. Built like a Craigslist listing. When you learn to code with crayons, the internet did what it always did. Devour, mock, then discard. He scrolled through the flood of tweets on his cracked screen, his own face staring back at him from meme after meme. His chest tightened with every comment, every laughing emoji, every LOL who diss tag. A girl from school reposted a TikTok where she laughed uncontrollably while playing the app, zooming in on the retry button, and mimicking his voice. "I'm Malik, and I code in the dark." In the comments someone replied, "At least you ain't lie." Then it got personal. Someone traced his email domain and linked it to a name found in an old PTA form, his mother's. Within hours, Aisha Jefferson's Facebook profile, which hadn't been updated since 2021, was suddenly flooded with messages. Some were just laughing, emojis. Some less innocent. "Tell your broke-ass son to stop embarrassing black folks." Read one. Aisha saw them in between scrubbing out a blood-stained hospital floor and changing her shoes on break. She called Malik during her lunch. "Baby, what's going on? Why are people messaging me?" He hesitated. Then quietly, "They're making fun of the app." "Who?" "Everyone." There was a long silence. She said, "You didn't steal nothing, right?"
"No, Mama. I built it."
"Then they ain't laughing at you. They just don't know what they're looking at." But the damage was already digging deep. And it wasn't just strangers. That evening a relative called Aisha from Atlanta, cousin Renee, someone they barely spoke to but who always had something to say. "You need to pull that boy out of whatever mess he's gotten himself into." Renee snapped over speakerphone. "He's got the whole family looking foolish. We got people asking if he's slow." Aisha tried to hold it together. "He's smart, Renee. He's smarter than half the kids they usually pick for these contests. He's on the internet looking like a joke." "Aisha, ain't no scholarships coming from that. You better sit him down before this becomes permanent." Malik stood behind the wall and heard every word. He didn't say anything. He didn't go into his closet that night. Didn't even open the laptop. Instead, he lay awake in bed, eyes open, hands twitching, brain screaming to do something, but too paralyzed to even breathe deeply. The next night, after nearly 36 hours of silence, Malik opened the laptop again. He didn't speak, didn't cry, didn't play music or put on background noise. He just started typing. He rewrote the interface, stripped out the grayscale, added a dark mode with smooth transitions and light glows. He replaced the old default font with Montserrat Bold, added sound cues for correct answers, and included animated progress bars. It wasn't flashy, but it was polished. Then he went deeper, added an AI-driven module that tracked which problems were missed most often, and began to feed algorithmically similar problems in future sessions. He renamed the loading screen from "Start Here" to "Let's Get Smarter Together." No more individualism. No more showing off. Just a quiet tool that helped. He pushed the new build before dawn. No announcement. No apology. It wasn't about changing people's minds anymore. It was about taking his name back from them. Hours later, his phone buzzed again. Not a notification. Not a threat. Not a meme. It was a Venmo alert. $300. Keep going, genius. No username. No note. Just that. Malik stared at the screen like it might catch fire. His breathing hitched. He didn't know who sent it. Maybe it was someone trolling him. Maybe it was Jillian. Maybe a stranger who saw through the noise. Whoever it was, It meant someone believed. And in that moment, surrounded by sweat, shame, and code, that belief meant more than the money. Malik follows the payment trail and discovers it came from someone tied directly to the judging panel, someone who just broke a rule to protect him. Jillian Royce sat in a cramped cubicle under the dull flicker of a third-floor light in Columbia's Department of Education building. The white hum of ceiling fans blended with the distant chatter of bureaucrats navigating funding spreadsheets. Her computer screen glowed with lines of code that were not part of her official workload, not technically. Every day since the review session, she had watched Malik Jefferson's Think Fast app evolve in real time. It had started as a crude, half-formed tool, full of glitches and gaps, but now, with each Git push and incremental update, she saw something unmistakable: growth fueled by humiliation, not halted by it. She hadn't told anyone she flagged his entry. The other judges assumed she let it go with the rest of the low-tier submissions. But she'd been tracking his version updates via the submission backend, something she wasn't technically authorized to do. When Malik's app added dark mode and the AI module overnight, without fanfare or announcement, she knew he wasn't just building code. He was surviving inside it. She created a burner Gmail fixitfeedback2025@gmail.com and sent her first message that evening. Subject line: potential improvement suggestions for Think Fast. She didn't sign it. No name. No hints. Just feedback. Malik received it while laying flat on his back under the kitchen table, rewiring the Wi-Fi extender to get a stable signal. He opened the email slowly, half expecting a prank. But the sender wasn't mocking. It was precise, thoughtful, useful. He read it 3 times, then got up, sprinted into the closet, and began editing the JS file line by line. He didn't reply. Instead, he pushed a new update 2 hours later. No bugs. The next night, Jillian sent another note. She was testing him, seeing if he could pivot from code to empathy. 2 days later, the app launched an offline light mode. No announcement, just functionality. She exhaled slowly at her desk. This kid was different. For the next week, she kept sending subtle guidance, code tweaks, logic optimizations, UX clarity tips. Every time, Malik read in silence, responded with actions, and improved the product. He didn't know who she was. She didn't ask for credit. It wasn't mentorship in the traditional sense. It was a quiet alliance built through the language of code. Aisha noticed the shift first. "You've been up late," she said one night, as she peeled off her janitor gloves, collapsing on the couch. "You writing essays, or is it that game?" Malik didn't look up. "Homework," he said without blinking. She sighed. "Just don't burn yourself out, baby." He didn't respond. His fingers kept moving. Meanwhile, Jillian took a risk. She forwarded Malik's latest build to Claire Middleton, a longtime colleague at the state education office who occasionally consulted on tech grants. Her message read, "Unofficial, off-record. Just watch this kid's app. He's not backed by a school or district, but the logic behind this tool, smarter than half the paid vendors we see, and he's doing it with nothing." Claire opened the file on a classroom simulator that night and responded 30 minutes later. "This is miles ahead of the apps we pay for. It's raw, sure, but it's real." The next morning, Malik's submission status quietly shifted from conditional to cleared for demonstration round. No email, no celebration, just a change in status. That evening, Malik sat on the back steps of the trailer, sipping a warm can of off-brand soda, staring at the pine trees stretching along the county line. He didn't know who was helping him, but he felt it. Not in words, in code. The way someone would leave a note in your locker, or cover your bus fare without being asked. Whoever this person was, they understood his language, not just as a coder, but as a boy trying not to disappear. For the first time, he allowed himself to imagine standing on a stage, explaining Think Fast to people who never thought he'd get there. But the universe wasn't done testing him yet. 2 days later, during 4th period, Malik sat in the chemistry lab, flipping through notes when his Chromebook buzzed with a status update from the state portal. Demo round. Location and instructions released. He smiled, almost laughed. His joy didn't go unnoticed. Mr. Candler, the school's chemistry teacher, and longtime cynic of Malik's intelligence, raised a brow. "What's the smirk for, Jefferson? Someone finally fix your GPA." Malik didn't answer. He tucked his screen away. Candler walked over, leaned against the desk. "You going somewhere, son?" Malik stayed quiet. The teacher pressed. That little app thing. Still happening? Malik nodded once. Demo round. Next week. Candler's lips curled. Slow and cruel. Ah. So they're letting charity cases present now. Malik's fingers curled around the desk edge. I'll be sure to watch, the teacher added. Hope you included a disclaimer, made with pity, not precision. The words landed harder than expected. Not because they surprised Malik, but because they came from someone paid to teach him science, not sabotage. That night, Candler logged into the teacher portal and pulled Malik's last semester grades. Barely a B in chemistry. Not enough to shout genius. He scrolled through Malik's disciplinary reports. Nothing serious, but a few tardies. One absence for illness. He clicked on Contact Admin. Concerns regarding student representation at state finals. Will elaborate in person. Then he made a call, not to the school board, but to a private academic review committee he sometimes volunteered with. The line rang twice. Hey, he said. I've got a student whose application might deserve a second look. No faculty advisor. Sketchy history. You might want to flag this one. Dunbar High. Name's Malik Jefferson. Malik's racist teacher has quietly launched an internal investigation to discredit his submission, just days before the finals. And this time it's official. The sun hadn't fully risen when Malik stood outside the glass doors of the South Carolina Convention Center, clutching his drawstring backpack like it contained diamonds. Inside it was his lifeline, the ThinkFast app loaded on an old Asus laptop with chipped corners, a pair of worn headphones, and 3 sheets of handwritten code logic he'd printed at school. His khakis were stiff, not because they were new, but because they were washed too many times in hot water. The shoes didn't fit. They belonged to a friend who said, just give 'em back next week. Malik had spent 5 minutes that morning, stuffing tissue into the toes so they wouldn't flop with each step. Other students streamed past him, polished, confident, dragging rolling tech bags, wearing badges already clipped to their designer jackets. A few glanced at him with that same subtle expression, the look you give someone who seems like they don't belong. But Malik kept walking. He had made it this far. He had code. He had an app. He had purpose. The security guard at the door was a tall white man with mirrored sunglasses, even though they were indoors. He raised a hand as Malik approached. Event staff only. Participants go through the back-loading dock. Malik paused. I'm a finalist. For the demo round. The guard's lips curled into something close to suspicion. You got ID? Malik reached into his backpack, pulled out his student ID, and the printed confirmation email. The guard didn't even glance at the documents.
You sure this ain't a vendor badge? You don't look like a tech rep.
Malik blinked. I submitted an app. Wait here. The man stepped back and radioed someone. Malik stood there, heart thudding, the glass door separating him from the life he'd dreamed about. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Other participants streamed in. No one else got stopped. Finally, a supervisor emerged. A middle-aged woman in a blue blazer with a lanyard that read Logistics Lead. Name? She asked sharply. Malik Jefferson. Dunbar High. She checked a clipboard, her eyes narrowing as if the name itself was an inconvenience. After a long pause, she said, You're late.
I've been here. They just...
Follow me. No apology. No eye contact. Just motion. Inside, the center pulsed with energy. LED walls, touchscreen kiosks, students giving rapid-fire demos on everything from drone navigation to sustainable 3D printing. A kid from Charleston prepped a holographic AI assistant. Another from Myrtle Beach displayed a VR tour of post-war Poland. Malik trailed the woman across the polished floors. She didn't slow down. You're in the overflow booth section, she said curtly, turning left down a quieter hall. Overflow. It's where we place schools without full sponsorship or faculty representatives. Her tone made it sound like he was being done a favor. They arrived at a booth barely wider than a folding table. It faced a maintenance exit and smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. No poster, no signage, just an empty space with a laminated paper that read, Jefferson Malik. ThinkFast app. He set his bag down, trying not to let the shame show on his face. The woman handed him a paper badge and left without a word. He opened the laptop, powered it on, and instantly froze. The screen dimmed. The battery warning blinked. 6% remaining. His charger. He had forgotten it on the kitchen counter. Malik's breath caught in his throat. His fingers shook as he rifled through the backpack again, praying maybe it slipped into a corner. Nothing. The battery dropped to 5. He considered texting his mom, but she was already halfway to her second job. This was it. This was how he would lose. Not from racism, not from lack of talent, but from a forgotten charger. Then, from across the aisle, a voice.
Is that the Think Fast booth?
Malik looked up. It was her, Jillian. Hoodie, clipboard, sneakers. The volunteer badge hung loosely around her neck. He nodded, not recognizing her fully, but vaguely recalling her from somewhere. Thought so, she said. She glanced at his laptop. That's an old model. Battery's dying, right? He nodded again, silent, shame threatening to swallow him whole. Without a word, Jillian pulled a cord from her canvas bag. The same charger. She handed it to him like a secret. Universal. Keep it. Malik stared. Thank you. No problem. It's a good app, by the way. She started to walk off. He blinked. Wait, he said, his voice catching. Have we talked before? She paused, half turning. Not really. Then smiling slightly. But I've seen your work. That's what matters. And she was gone. He plugged in the laptop. The screen brightened. The app loaded. He ran a test round. The math problems fired off with zero delay. The AI module worked seamlessly, cycling in tougher equations after 3 correct answers. ThinkFast had never felt more alive. Still, the crowd passed his booth without stopping. Most didn't look. Some slowed down, only to glance at the handwritten poster he'd pinned up last night. Built in a closet, designed to help. But Malik kept smiling. He didn't come here to be admired. He came here to prove he could build. Then a shadow. A man in a gray suit stepped up. His name tag read, Kenneth Bellamy, State Judge. He studied the app's home screen, the minimal design, the lack of color. His lips tightened. This your school project? He asked. Voice clipped. Yes, sir. Bellamy squinted at the keyboard, then back at Malik. Looks ambitious, he said, the word carrying a weight it wasn't meant to. It didn't sound like a compliment, more like a warning. He didn't even sit, just walked away, jotting something on his tablet. Malik stood still, pulse spiking. Was that it? Had that man just disqualified him with a glance? He didn't know, but the look in the judge's eyes said one thing loud and clear. You're still not supposed to be here. Malik watches as that same judge approaches another booth, and overhears him whisper to a colleague, we should verify his code source. That kid's submission feels too clean. Malik watched Judge Kenneth Bellamy's back disappear into a sea of pressed suits and leaded displays, but the words he'd whispered to his colleague still rang in his ears. That kid's submission feels too clean. Too clean. As if polish, effort, or logic didn't belong to him. As if skill, when coming from someone like Malik Jefferson, must be borrowed or stolen. He looked down at his laptop, the ThinkFast interface blinking patiently. His reflection stared back from the glossy screen, nervous eyes, a thin film of sweat forming above his lip. Across the aisle, other students were presenting their projects with enthusiasm and flair. One girl in a royal blue blazer held up a small robot that sorted marbles by color. Cameras hovered. Applause came in waves. Malik took a deep breath and tried to focus. Then a clipboard dropped onto his booth table with a smack. Bellamy had returned, this time flanked by another judge. A stern woman in a navy pantsuit with an expression carved in granite. Her name tag read Dr. Pamela Russo. We're requesting a breakdown of your code, she said, skipping any preamble. Malik blinked. You want the source code? Not just the code, Bellamy added. The logic. Line by line. Explain how you structured the app. Decision trees. AI logic. The math engine. The way they stared at him, not with curiosity, but with suspicion, made his stomach turn. Okay, he stammered, reaching for the laptop. He opened the code editor, fingers trembling slightly. Lines of JavaScript, CSS, and JSON blocks loaded. The judges loomed behind him, silent, cold. He pointed to the first section. This is the main function that launches the app. I used a local storage protocol here to allow caching in areas with weak Wi-Fi that connects to a conditional render that detects whether a user has failed a question type more than once. Bellamy interrupted. Why that logic? Why not just randomize the questions? Malik swallowed. Because I wanted it to feel tailored, like the app noticed what you struggled with. It's based on response tracking and time to answer metrics. Metrics? Dr. Russo echoed, brows raised. He nodded. There's a back-end tracker. It tags incorrect answers and assigns difficulty scores. It ramps up or down depending on accuracy over time. They said nothing.
He moved on.
This is the AI module I added last week. It uses a simplified version of reinforcement learning. Not full neural net, just looped conditional weighting. Here it assigns score value. Bellamy cut in again. Did you get this code from a library? Malik's mouth went dry. No, he said softly. Who helped you write this? No one. They exchanged a glance. Russo leaned in, her voice low. You're saying you wrote every line of this alone? No tutor? No GitHub fork? No outside guidance? I had some anonymous feedback, Malik said, instantly regretting it. Bellamy's eyes narrowed. From who? I don't know. Just emails. Suggestions. The room seemed to grow smaller. Malik felt the sweat roll down the back of his neck. I can walk you through the rest, he said quickly. I can explain the math module too. It's based on time trials I built using spreadsheet templates. But they were already stepping back. That won't be necessary, Russo said curtly. We'll follow up after internal review. Bellamy added. Please close the app for now. Malik did as told. His hands felt numb. Across the floor, Jillian watched it all unfold from behind a volunteer booth. Her fists clenched inside her jacket pockets. She could read their posture, hear their tone even from a distance. They weren't reviewing him. They were dissecting him, looking for reasons to prove their assumptions right. She moved toward the judge area, but stopped herself. One misstep, one public admission that she'd been helping Malik, and she'd lose her position, compromise the entire evaluation. But she didn't need confirmation. She knew that look. The same look that once trailed her through a scholarship panel when she was 17. Too impressive. Too clean. Not yours. Back at Malik's booth, the air had grown heavier. He sat alone, the laptop now dimmed again, his badge feeling heavier around his neck. A group of students passed by, glancing at his corner. One of them smirked. The others didn't bother to hide their laughter. He heard one whisper. That's the kid from Twitter, right? Ghetto code? Malik looked down. He didn't answer. 2 booths over, a tall white student in a custom monogrammed polo shirt was finishing his demo. His project? An AI-driven flashcard app that misread every 4th prompt. The screen froze twice during testing. Still, the judges clapped. One leaned in and said, Great ambition. Real polish. You've got a bright future. Malik stared. He watched as the judges took a group photo with the student, laughing. His stomach tightened. What had he done differently? He hadn't begged to be seen. He had worked, coded, pushed alone, in silence, in shame. He wasn't trying to outperform anyone, just to be taken serious. But now, he was under review, not for a prize, but for the crime of being competent without permission. 30 minutes later, a volunteer dropped a sealed envelope onto his booth. It wasn't fancy, just a plain letterhead with a stamp that read, Pending Review Status. He opened it slowly. Mr. Jefferson, your submission is currently under additional evaluation. Your eligibility for the final round will be determined by the Oversight Board. Please refrain from further demonstrations until notified. He read it twice. 3 times. He wasn't even disqualified. He was in limbo. His booth was now marked with a temporary tag. Under review, final status pending. Students walked by like he had the plague. Jillian spotted the sign from across the room and closed her eyes. Jaw tight. Someone had made a decision, not officially, not publicly, but deliberately. And Malik knew it. He walked outside into the courtyard, breathing in the crisp, sterile air of corporate landscaping and fake stone tiles. He sat on a bench, pulled out his phone and scrolled. His app had 412 new downloads, 15 new 5-star reviews, 1 message from a teacher in Missouri. My 6th graders love it. Keep going, Malik. He smiled. Just barely. But then another email popped up. Subject line, inquiry regarding original authorship. Think fast application. He tapped it open. It was from the Oversight Board. Dear Mr. Jefferson, we have received concerns about the independent authorship of your submission. Please provide documented proof of developmental history and original work timeline within 72 hours. His chest hollowed. They weren't just questioning him. They were preparing to erase him. Behind closed doors, the judges meet after hours, and Bellamy speaks the words Jillian feared most. He's talented, but without institutional mentorship, we can't verify the integrity. We may need to disqualify him. Jillian didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor of her apartment, her back against the wall, a half-empty mug of coffee on the floor beside her, cold and forgotten. The glow from her laptop screen painted sharp shadows on her face. Line after line of commit history flickered before her eyes. Timestamps, function edits, push logs, refactor notes. It was all there. Proof in black and white that Malik Jefferson was the true and sole creator of ThinkFast. She scrolled through his GitHub repository again. Every change was tracked to his handle. Me Jeff Code 94. The earliest file was from 8 months ago. A single .html shell titled First Try. The structure was sloppy. The tags mismatched. The CSS laughably broken. But it was his. No plagiarized templates. No copied libraries. Just persistent. She compiled everything. Source files, timestamps, version histories, commit messages, even his late-night notes, explaining a bug fix. She attached screenshots, created a zip folder, labeled it ThinkFast Audit Malik Jefferson Proof Dev. Then, using a secure Proton Mail account, she sent it to State Board Tips at EdTech Review. Subject RIA Review Inquiry. ThinkFast Submission. Independent Proof. Body. The student in question authored the app. Git history and metadata attached. This is not a cloned submission. Review fairly. She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. The following morning, whispers circulated through the back offices of the State Tech Board like wind stirring dry leaves. Someone had submitted a full audit package on the contested app. Not from a school, not from a parent, but from an anonymous source who clearly knew code. Within hours, Bellamy was summoned to a special review session. An emergency panel was formed in a side conference room, separate from the main floor. 8 officials sat around a long table, with printed packets of the submission. Screens displayed Malik's GitHub tree. Jillian, still technically a volunteer, wasn't invited in. But she lingered outside, pretending to update signage, heart pounding with every muffled word through the door. Inside, the panel was divided. "This is unusually clean documentation," said a female board member. "Almost too clean," muttered another. But a third, a younger man with thick-rimmed glasses and a coding background, pushed back. "No. This is exactly what you'd see from a self-taught dev with something to prove. The timestamps match. There's a learning curve you can trace over months." Bellamy remained stoic, flipping through the printout without expression. "We already put him under review," he said flatly. "This kind of thing doesn't just disappear because of one anonymous tip." But another judge leaned in. "It also can't be used to disqualify him when the data contradicts our assumption. The receipts are here." There was silence. Then someone said what Jillian had been hoping for. "Call the oversight team. Reopen his eligibility file. Today." Meanwhile, back on the convention floor, Malik sat at his booth like a statue. Visitors passed him without stopping. His corner, the one near the maintenance exit, felt colder now, like the event was already over for him. His laptop was closed, the pending status card still taped above his name like a caution sign. A camera crew circled the floor, filming B-roll for the closing montage. They panned past the prep school team with a solar drone, then the twins from Charleston's elite charter academy. When they reached Malik's booth, they turned the camera away. The lens skipped over him like he was furniture. Malik felt it in his chest. Not a sharp pain, just an ache, the dull kind that came from being looked through. He watched other students laughing, exchanging social media handles, pitching their projects to judges and sponsors. His hand stayed in his lap. He reached into his bag and began pulling things out. The mouse, the headphones, the power cord, then the laptop. He started packing it away slowly, folding each item with a sort of finality, like someone leaving a home they never really lived in. Behind him, someone approached, quiet. A shadow. A folded note slipped onto his table. He looked up. It was Jillian. She didn't say a word, just walked past like a stranger. He opened the note. "Don't leave. You're about to make history." Malik's throat tightened. His fingers froze on the laptop lid. He stared at the note again, folded it, slipped it into his pocket. Then he sat back down. He opened the laptop and waited. 30 minutes later, a chime echoed through the building, signaling the beginning of the final day's closing awards ceremony. Participants and guests shuffled toward the main stage hall, a brightly lit room with a massive screen hanging overhead, and rows of chairs fanned out beneath glowing banners. Malik walked in last, finding a seat near the back. The screen flashed, South Carolina State STEM Innovation Awards. Closing gala. A host took the stage, all smiles and corporate polish. Thank you for joining us this weekend to celebrate brilliance, innovation, and the future of STEM in our great state. Applause. We've seen extraordinary projects from drone tech to AI medicine, to sustainable agriculture apps and more. And now it's time to honor our top 10 finalists. More applause. Malik leaned forward, hands gripping his knees. The screen shifted to the first slide. Finalist and 10, Solar Harvest Tracker. Low Country Robotics Club. Clapping. Cheer. Then, 9, Micro Waste Filter Bot. James Island Prep. 8, Safe VR. New Columbia Tech High. Slide after slide. Cheers after cheers. 5, 4. Malik's name was nowhere. His throat closed. The chair beneath him felt miles away from the stage. Then, the host paused. We'll announce our top 2 in just a moment, he said. But first, we'd like to recognize one particular story, a student whose journey pushed boundaries and challenged the very definition of innovation. Malik's head snapped up. The host continued. This next student wasn't on any of our original lists. In fact, he was almost disqualified. Gasps whispered through the room. But his work, his code, and his persistence spoke louder than any resume. And thanks to a last-minute review, he made it. The screen went black for a beat, then lit up again with 6 white letters. Malik Jefferson. The word Special Recognition, Independent Innovation Award appeared below his name. The auditorium exploded into murmurs. Some people clapped, some didn't. But Malik? He just sat still, frozen. Then, slowly, he stood. All eyes turned to him. Some skeptical, some shocked. A camera finally found him, and as the lens locked onto his face, the feed beamed his image onto the overhead screen. Hoodie, nervous hands, wide eyes. The boy they had ignored all weekend was now 10 feet tall above them. As Malik walks toward the stage, a judge leans toward another and whispers, "We gave him that award to quiet the outrage, not because he belongs here." The applause had barely settled when Malik reached the steps of the stage. The air was different up here, tighter, thinner, almost electric. Lights beamed down like interrogation lamps, and the screen above still flashed his name in crisp white text. Malik Jefferson, think fast. For a second he thought this was what acceptance felt like. That brief flicker of possibility, where the crowd no longer saw a joke, but a builder. He adjusted the badge clip to his collar. His palms were damp. His mind repeated one phrase over and over. Don't mess this up. The host stepped aside as Malik approached the podium. A staffer handed him a wireless mic. His laptop was already waiting on the connected table. The Think Fast icon sat in the center of the screen, waiting. He reached out to double-click, but before he could touch the mouse, the screen behind him blinked. Once, twice, then turned blue. Not the app, not his name. Just a flashing update. Notice entry DEN 309 has been withdrawn for further review. The room fell silent. Then came the murmurs. Soft at first, then sharper. A few audience members tilted their heads, confused. Others began whispering to each other, chuckling. A boy near the front leaned toward his friend and said aloud, "Guess someone finally read the terms of service." Laughter. Malik froze. His hand hovered just above the laptop. The host cleared his throat awkwardly. It appears we've had a technical adjustment. Entry DEN 389. Think Fast has been withdrawn from the demonstration round, per committee request. Gasps now. A few scattered claps. Some booed. Malik stood still, mic in hand, shoulders locked in place. No explanation. No one moved to escort him. The humiliation was choreographed to hang, right there in midair. He lowered the mic slowly, placed it back on the table, and stepped back, face expressionless. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Why'd you even bring him up?" A voice behind that. He probably copied half the code anyway. Backstage, Jillian pushed through a curtain with fire in her chest. She spotted Kenneth Bellamy, clipboard in hand, whispering with 2 other judges. "You withdrew him," she hissed, storming toward them. Bellamy turned, unsurprised. "There's been new concern. You just reinstated him, and now you pull him mid-ceremony? In front of the audience?" Bellamy didn't flinch. "We've received additional queries about the origin of the app's algorithmic model. Standard review protocol." "You're humiliating a kid," she snapped. "And for what? He's done everything you asked. You had proof." One of the other judges, Dr. Russo, raised a hand. It's temporary. Try telling him that, Jillian shot back. You just told a room full of investors, reporters, and students that he's a fraud. Bellamy's expression hardened. We don't answer to Twitter, Miss Royce. No, Jillian said quietly. But you'll answer to history. She turned, face red, fists clenched, and walked back into the shadows of the wings. Malik had returned to his seat by now. Alone again. He didn't cry. Not there. Not in front of them. But the ache behind his eyes told a different story. He stared at the glowing text, still hanging on the screen, withdrawn for review. It looked like a scar, and yet, movement stirred on stage. From the side wing, a tall man in a charcoal suit stepped up to the podium and whispered urgently to the host. The host's eyes widened. He leaned into the mic, voice fumbling but audible. Ladies and gentlemen, we've received an update. The screen blinked again. This time, the slide returned. Reinstated entry Zen 3089. Think Fast by Malik Jefferson. Gasps. Then confusion. Then a rumble of noise sweeping the room. The host tried to keep pace. We apologize for the confusion. Entry Zen 3089 will proceed with a live demo as originally planned. Mr. Jefferson, please return to the stage. Malik didn't move. He blinked, uncertain. All eyes were on him. A quiet nudge came from behind. Jillian whispering at his shoulder now. It's you. Go. He stood. Slowly. Walked back to the stage, like someone re-entering a burning building. The host offered him the mic again. This time, Malik took it. No script. No preamble. He simply looked out across the crowd and said, I built this app to help people who never thought math was made for them. People like me. He turned to the table, clicked into the Think Fast icon. The screen flickered, then froze. The cursor didn't move. The loading bar stuck at 2. Malik clicked again. Nothing. His heart dropped into his stomach. He tried the keyboard shortcut. Then another. Still nothing. The screen was locked. A soft error chime echoed through the room. The kind that said, this isn't your day. The audience murmured louder now. Cell phones were lifted. Cameras recording. Faces twisted in anticipation. He stared at the screen, eyes wide, chest heaving. He had tested the app that morning. It worked. It worked. Why now? He pulled the mouse, checked the taskbar. A strange pop-up sat beneath it, one he hadn't seen before.
External access conflicts, permissions denied.
He stared. That wasn't a crash.
That was a block.
Someone had tampered with the demo system. Malik lifts his eyes from the screen, heart racing, and spots a familiar face in the crowd. Mr. Candler, his chemistry teacher, smiling. The silence on stage was deafening. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something worse. Judgment. The ThinkFast app still hadn't loaded. The spinning wheel in the center of the screen mocked Malik like a ticking clock, winding toward public failure. A faint error chime echoed once more, bouncing off the stage walls and into hundreds of expectant ears. Somewhere in the third row, Judge Kenneth Bellamy leaned into his clipboard and began writing. His smirk was subtle, not gloating, but knowing. It said, of course. On the other side of the stage, a student from Charleston elbowed his teammate and whispered, Told you it was too good to be real. The screen remained frozen. Malik's mouth felt dry as paper. He could barely swallow, but through the blur of lights and panic, one image snapped into focus. Mr. Candler, his chemistry teacher, seated dead center, front row, arms crossed, and smiling. That smile wasn't warm. It was satisfied. Malik blinked hard. That's when he knew. This wasn't a crash. This was a setup. He took a breath, slow and deliberate, not out of calm but defiance. Then, with steady hands, he clicked out of the app window and opened a hidden folder deep in his desktop. It was named Failsafe Alpha, a recovery file he'd coded just the night before. Something told him he might need it. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't meant to impress. It was protection. He clicked it. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then a console opened in the bottom corner of the screen, and a stream of code executed in real time. A new app instance launched, stripped of graphics, no splash animation, just pure function. The audience stared, confused. Bellamy paused mid-sentence on his clipboard. Miss Chandler leaned forward slightly, and then the main screen blinked to life. No lag, no glitches, just a clean gray panel, and a blinking green start button. Malik spoke, his voice slightly hoarse but firm. This is Think Fast in recovery mode. It skips the splash and background features to prioritize engine performance. He tapped start. Questions began firing on the screen. What's 14%? Convert 35 into decimal. What's the square root? Malik answered them one by one. The app responded instantly. No delays. No bugs. Then the screen split. On the left. His responses on the right. A live display of the analytics engine. Time to answer pattern detection. Error flagging. It tracked not just right or wrong, but how fast he was thinking. People in the crowd leaned forward. Jillian, still at the side of the stage, pulled out her phone and hit record. One student in the audience whispered, "That's cleaner than mine. Way faster." A teacher nearby mumbled, "That's adaptive logic." Wait, is it scaling difficulty? On screen, the AI module kicked in. After 3 quick right answers, the timer tightened, and the questions grew harder. Malik turned to the audience now. The app adjusts your questions based on your weaknesses. It doesn't just grade you, it learns with you. He answered 2 more questions. Each one shaved milliseconds from the response time. The CPU monitor in the corner hovered at 9%, barely blinking. One of the judges, previously silent, now leaned into his mic. "Can you show how it flags patterns?" Malik nodded, toggled the settings. A visual chart appeared, showing how incorrect answers were grouped and reassigned into a new test set. Another judge asked, "Does it store user data?" "No names, no personal info," Malik said quickly. "Just response categories. Everything local." The room shifted. Where there had been mockery, there was now interest, even awe. Then from the back of the room, a voice. "Run a group test." A student had stood up, holding her phone.
Can we try it?
Malik smiled for the first time in hours. He turned the laptop screen and launched the web version. A QR code popped up. In seconds, over a dozen phones connected. The app split the screen into tiles, each showing live user responses, timer countdowns, and a leaderboard. A burst of energy swept the room. Laughter, competition, joy. One kid shouted, "Yo, I just beat the question before the timer dropped." Another, "It's like Kahoot, but it's actually smart." Jillian wiped her eyes. It wasn't the code. It wasn't the logic. It was the moment. They saw him now, not as a poor black kid from a forgotten county, not as a charity case, but as a creator, a builder, someone who had earned this stage. Even Bellamy had stopped writing. Mr. Candler, however, did not smile this time. His arms were still crossed, but his jaw was tight. Malik closed the app, turned back to the mic. "I wrote this in a closet, on a used laptop, with no sponsors, no team, just me. Because I believe no one should feel stupid just because they didn't grow up with resources." The room exploded in applause. It wasn't polite. It was earned. In the middle of the ovation, a woman near the press section leaned over to a man beside her. She held a camera, mic clipped to her jacket collar. She whispered, "I think this kid just beat the top scorer." The man nodded slowly, eyes locked on Malik. "Run that story." As the crowd cheers, Jillian's phone buzzes with a message from an unknown number. He wasn't supposed to win. Pull him or we will. It took just 47 minutes. 47 minutes from the moment Malik's recovery mode demo ended. From the final cheer that shook the floor of the state STEM finals, to the point where the internet, that cold, cruel beast that had once mocked him, turned. The first clip hit Twitter at 3:12 p.m. Shot from the back of the room on a shaky phone, it captured Malik toggling between live test modules and analytic overlays with speed and precision. The caption read, "Kid built a math app in a trailer closet and just bodied the state tech competition. No sponsors, no coach, all code, math built in the mud." That hashtag raw, poetic, unpolished, caught fire like dry grass under a match. By 3:34 p.m., it was trending across the state. By 4:10 p.m., it was national. Screenshots of Malik's calm face during the live test. His words, "because I believe no one should feel stupid just because they didn't grow up with resources," became the anthem of the hour. People reposted old ghetto code memes, now crossed out with red X's, and the caption, "Y'all laughed too early." The reversal wasn't subtle. It was loud, explosive, immediate. In the hallway outside the demo floor, Malik leaned against a beige wall, legs still weak, clutching a bottle of water someone had handed him. He felt suspended, like the world was moving around him and he hadn't yet re-entered it. Jillian stood a few feet away, watching the mentions roll in on her phone. Then, a voice cut through the chatter. "Mr. Jefferson?" They turned. A local TV anchor, blonde, businesslike, bright-eyed, stepped forward with a cameraman in tow. Her mic already had the station's logo on it. WCSC, 6. Do you have a minute for a quick interview, she asked. Malik hesitated. Jillian nodded slightly behind her. Say yes. He stepped forward. The anchor raised the mic, camera light blinking red. We're standing with Malik Jefferson, who just stunned judges and attendees alike with his self-built education app, Think Fast. Malik, everyone's asking, what drove you to build this? He didn't overthink. He didn't posture. He just said, because no one built one for kids like me. The camera panned slowly. The words hung in the air, undisturbed. Did you expect this response? Malik shook his head. No. I didn't expect to make it past the front door. By nightfall, the video had over 1.2 million views. The hashtags multiplied. Math built in the mud. Think fast, not loud. Closet coder. Malik made it. Former critics, the same ones who posted clown emojis and roasted his early UI, now praised the raw brilliance and unfiltered talent behind his code. Revolutionary youth-built education tool, one tech blogger called it. Another headline read, South Carolina teen codes past poverty and prejudice. At Dunbar High, the silence broke. The school's official account, dormant since Black History Month, posted a pixelated photo of Malik from 2 years ago, with the caption, Congratulations to our very own Malik Jefferson, making Dunbar proud at the state STEM finals. It was the digital equivalent of a hand wave after walking past you for years. Still, it drew likes. Teachers reposted it. Even students who barely spoke to Malik began commenting things like W and knew he was cooking something. But nothing shocked Malik more than what happened next. While scrolling through his mentions, still trying to understand how it all flipped so fast, a notification popped up. Hi Mr. Candler, Science just mentioned you in a tweet. His thumb hesitated. He tapped. The tweet read, Proud to have taught Malik Jefferson. Knew he was special from day one. Keep going, kid. STEM future math built in the mud. Malik stared. He didn't feel pride. He didn't even feel rage. He just felt hollow. Because that tweet, that sudden change in tone, wasn't for him. It was for everyone else watching. Jillian saw the tweet too. She looked at him, waiting for his reaction. Because he was right. Later that evening, as the event wound down and booths were being disassembled, Malik packed up his laptop in silence. He didn't need praise. He didn't need handshakes from people who once pretended he wasn't in the room. What he needed was clarity, purpose. He'd proven himself. But what came next? An email preview hovered on the screen. The sender Orrin Feldman, Sandbar Ventures, Silicon Valley. Subject line, We'd like to talk. Immediately, Malik's breath caught. He opened it. Hi Malik. We watched your presentation at the state finals with great interest. Your clarity of purpose and technical intuition are rare, especially without formal institutional backing.
We would love to schedule a conversation. We're prepared to discuss investment, scaling, and distribution for Think Fast.
You have something powerful here. Let's talk. Orrin Feldman, founding partner, Sandbar Ventures, Palo Alto CEO. Malik didn't speak. Jillian saw his eyes scanning every line. Over and over. You okay? She asked. He nodded. Yeah. Just didn't think this was even in the realm of real. She smiled. You just rewrote the realm. But as Malik looked back down at the screen, a thought surfaced. Quiet, persistent. They want it now. But do they want me? He'd heard the stories. Kids who build something real, only to have it taken, repackaged, sold, and forgotten. And then, just as his fingers hovered over the reply button, a second email arrived. From Anonymous at Hexbackers. Subject. Before you sign anything, read this. Attachment, NDA breach. Don't let them make you the product. Malik opens the attachment and sees something that makes him question everything about the offer on the table. Malik's eyes darted across the screen. His hands hovered just above the keyboard. Frozen. The email was short. Clean. Corporate. Too clean. $60,000. That was the number. $60,000 for full rights. Licensing, source code, and back-end architecture of ThinkFat. The message from Orrin Feldman at Sandbar Ventures framed it gently. An ideal first step for a bright underrepresented innovator looking to stabilize and grow. But it wasn't the dollar sign that caught Malik's breath in his throat. It was the attachment. The one from the anonymous sender. Subject. Before you sign anything, read this. He opened it. Inside was a redlined version of the same contract Sandbar Ventures had sent him, but with callouts in bold yellow. Section 3.1. All future iterations, upgrades or spin-offs based on ThinkFast IP shall be property of Sandbar Ventures in perpetuity. Section 4.2. Original creator agrees to forfeit all future claims to compensation, royalties or recognition.
Section 6.5, Non-Compete Clause. Creator may not develop or distribute similar tools in the education or productivity markets for a term of 8 years.
Malik stared. The blood drained from his face. The deal wasn't a launch pad. It was a muzzle. Later that afternoon, he sat in a sun-streaked corner of a downtown Columbia coffee shop with Jillian, his laptop open between them. The contract pulled up. She hadn't spoken in 2 minutes. Then she closed her eyes and said quietly, "This isn't a partnership. It's a buyout dressed like a scholarship." Malik said nothing at first. His fingers tapped restlessly on the table's edge. "My mom's behind on rent," he finally said. "Our fridge is empty half the week. The roof leaks every time it rains more than an hour. 60 grand isn't small, Jill." "I know it's not," she said. "But neither is your voice." He looked up. "What if this is the only time someone offers?" Jillian leaned forward. "Then it's still better to starve a little longer than be fed and forgotten." Silence. The kind that wraps tight around your lungs. "I'm not used to options," Malik said. "It feels like theft disguised as opportunity. But part of me still wonders if I'm being ungrateful." "You're not being ungrateful," she said. "You're being hunted smart." She called in a favor from someone she met during her time at the State Tech Board, a nonprofit legal advocate named Raina Owens, who worked with low-income youth navigating intellectual property traps. Raina met Malik the next day in a church basement converted into a community office space. There was no air conditioning, and the fan buzzed like a bee stuck in a glass jar. She scanned the contract silently, pen in hand, jotting quick annotations. After 10 minutes she pushed it aside and looked Malik in the eye. "Let me guess, they told you this was a great start." He nodded. "Right," she said, tapping the table. "It's a great start for them." She broke it down in plain language. "They'll own your code, your future updates, and anything you build that even smells like ThinkFast. You'd be signing away not just your idea, but your ability to dream something new." Malik swallowed hard. She added, "And that non-compete clause, that's a steel cage. You wouldn't be allowed to build anything educational, even volunteer, until you're in your mid-20s. He whispered. "They didn't say any of that." "They never do," Raina said. That night, Malik sat on the roof of his trailer home, legs crossed, staring at the stars that blinked through the pollution haze. Ayesha was asleep inside, a folded pile of unpaid bills sitting on the kitchen table below. He thought about everything he could buy with 60 grand. Fix the roof, pay off rent, replace the laptop, finally get his mom a real bed instead of the fold-out couch. But every time he saw those zeros, he also saw the fine print. And the face of Candler, and Bellamy, and every other person who smiled at him only after it became convenient to do so. The next morning, Malik called Orrin Feldman. He didn't hide the nerves in his voice. "I appreciate the offer," he said, "but I'm not ready to give up ownership. I built this without help. I want to grow it the same way." There was a long pause on the other end. Then Orrin chuckled softly. "Malik, listen, I respect your passion, but don't romanticize bootstraps. You're not in a position to say no." Malik's grip on the phone tightened. "I think I am." Another pause. Then the call ended. No goodbye. Later that day, Malik was sitting in the school library, earphones in, polishing a new module for ThinkFast, a multiplayer challenge feature that would allow students to compete in real time across state lines, when a sudden vibration hit his phone. He looked down. Email notification. App status alert. Google Play console. His stomach dropped. He opened the email. "Dear developer, your application ThinkFast has been temporarily removed from the Play Store due to a content dispute regarding intellectual property rights. Please review the attached complaint and respond within 72 hours. Attached was a PDF, filed by a corporate proxy entity, Future Ed Labs LLC, an affiliate of Sandbar Ventures. The complaint accused Malik of violating Section 2.3 of the developer agreement by distributing a product with unverified authorship provenance and potentially derivative logic from proprietary frameworks. In short, they were trying to bury him. Not through direct confrontation, through paperwork, through shadows. Jillian called within minutes.
You saw?
He nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "They're going to kill it in court if we don't move fast," she said. "They know exactly what they're doing. They don't want the app." Malik said quietly. They want me gone so they can copy it clean. She didn't deny it. Instead, she asked, do you trust me? Yes. Then don't respond yet. Let me find someone who knows how to fight back. Malik sat still, listening to the dial tone when she hung up. All around him, students walked past, oblivious, laughing, talking about prom, TikTok, lunch. But Malik felt like he was once again coding in that dark, airless closet, only this time, the door wasn't just closed. It was locked from the outside. Jillian contacts a rogue coder turned civil rights attorney who once sued the Department of Education, and who just might be Malik's only hope of keeping his app alive. The takedown wasn't immediate. It was surgical. First came the articles, seemingly unconnected tech blogs, niche, low-traffic corners of the internet, began posting suspiciously similar headlines within hours of Malik's app being removed from the Play Store. Teen innovator or opportunist. ThinkFast's origins under scrutiny. Code too clean? Experts question Malik Jefferson's authorship claims. Repurposed genius. How much of ThinkFast was actually built from scratch? The pieces didn't outright accuse him of plagiarism. That would have been too easy to disprove. Instead, they trafficked in insinuation, clever poisonous phrasing that lodged in readers' minds like burrs. Sources suggest elements of the app resemble known open-source frameworks. While impressive, some believe the math logic may have been lifted from uncredited repositories. It's unclear how a student with no formal training could achieve this level of algorithmic complexity without assistance. It was racism dressed as skepticism. And it worked. Within days, Malik's school inbox filled with automated filters catching flagged emails, many anonymous, all venomous. Subject: fraud at Dunbar High. Subject: remove the cheat. Subject: he made you look stupid. Fix it. One message read: he humiliated your institution. Take back your dignity. Revoke the nomination. Another: there are real students with real mentors who deserved that stage. Mr. Green, the principal who once told Malik, don't get your hopes up too high, now summoned him to the office with faux concern. There's been some noise, Green said, clasping his hands on the desk like a disappointed coach. Emails, concerns about plagiarism, allegation. Malik stared at him. You think I stole it? I didn't say that, Green said quickly. But this is a public institution. We have to be responsive. You never wanted me to win, Malik said, voice low. Green looked away. This has nothing to do with that. But it did, and they both knew it. Then the internet escalated. A right-wing podcast with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, American Earned, released an episode titled, When Wokeness Codes, the poster boy for stolen merit. The host, a sharp-voiced ex-investor turned cultural pundit, spent 28 minutes dissecting Malik's story with a sneer. No father, no record of training, no academic awards prior to this app. And yet we're supposed to believe this poor kid from nowhere coded a state-challenging math engine all by himself? Please. He clicked for effect. You know what I think? I think some activist group wanted a black genius story, and they found someone to script it for. The episode trended for 2 days straight. Malik stopped going online, stopped checking his mentions, stopped coding for 3 nights straight. But the real blow came when his mother was doxxed. A link to Aisha Jefferson's Facebook profile began circulating on extremist forums. Photos of her in scrubs, screenshots of their trailer home pulled from Google Maps. And then came the comments. Living off taxpayer money while the kid fakes brilliance. Where's the father? Surprise, surprise. 2 protesters showed up across the street from their trailer. One held a cardboard sign reading "Cheaters don't belong in STEM." Malik saw his mother cry for the first time in years. She never told him. But he knew it was because she started carrying her pepper spray inside the house. Jillian watched it all unfold from the inside, and finally broke her silence. She logged into her professional Twitter account and posted, I've worked with and reviewed dozens of young coders. I flagged Malik's submission because it was one of the most raw and authentic builds I've seen in years. Here's why the lies don't hold. Attached were screenshots of Malik's GitHub repository history, metadata timestamps, early drafts from months before the state fair, even email threads where she'd offered anonymous feedback. She ended the thread with, This isn't about code, it's about who's allowed to be brilliant and who's not. The tweet thread exploded. Some responded with gratitude. Others called her biased, a race apologist, a diversity pawn. But one message stood out from the noise. An email from a civil rights tech law firm based in Atlanta. Subject: pro bono offer. Think fast case. We've seen what's happening. We represent young black creators under threat from institutions seeking to erase or co-opt their work. If Malik is open to it, we'd like to represent him. Full legal counsel, no charge. The next evening, Malik met the firm's representative in a library conference room. The woman's name was Tracy Menard, and her calm intensity filled the space before she even sat down. She didn't ask him how he was. She opened her laptop and started. We're preparing to file a motion with Google to reinstate the app under protective status. We'll issue a cease and desist to Future Ed Labs and Sandbar Ventures. We've also notified the Fair Use and IP Oversight Committee. Malik blinked. All of that already? We move fast, Tracy said. Because they are. She paused. But I need you to be ready. This is about more than code now. It's about who you are in public. He nodded slowly. I'm not afraid, he said. You should be, Tracy replied. Because you're about to step into a system designed to exhaust you. Meanwhile, at the state board headquarters, an internal meeting convened behind closed doors. Bellamy was there. So was Dr. Russo. They had read Jillian's thread, seen the legal press releases, watched the temperature rise online. Russo tapped her fingers on the table. We made a miscalculation. Bellamy said nothing.
We need to reopen the file. If we wait, this becomes a discrimination case.
Bellamy finally spoke. So we pretend we were just being thorough? She nodded. We spin it. Say we're committed to integrity and fairness. Bellamy exhaled. Fine. But if we do this, it needs to be public. She nodded again. Let's call a second review hearing. Malik received the notice via certified mail 2 days later. He opened it slowly, fingers stiff. To Mr. Malik Jefferson. The South Carolina State STEM Board invites you to a formal follow-up hearing regarding your participation, authorship, and eligibility status in the 2025 Innovation Finals. The hearing will be public. You may bring legal representation. Date, May 3rd. He read the letter twice. Then he folded it. He looked up at his mother across the table and said, They're trying to undo everything. She didn't flinch. She just said, Then we fight back in the light. The night before the hearing, Malik receives a video clip from an anonymous number. It shows a board member privately admitting, even if the code's his, the optics are bad. It makes the whole system look broken. The hearing was held in an old, overly air-conditioned auditorium inside the State Department of Education building. Beige walls, fluorescent lighting, and the stale scent of decades-old paper files. The kind of place where decisions are made without emotion and where lives are changed with dry ink. At the front of the room sat 5 board members, all white, all in suits, all skeptical. Their faces were unreadable, not hostile, not warm, just fixed in that bureaucratic stare of justification seeking confirmation. Malik sat alone at the center table, a single laptop resting before him, like a loaded question. His attorney, Tracy Menard, stood quietly behind him, poised but silent. She'd advised him, speak when spoken to. Be calm. Be clear. Let the work speak louder than their tone. He hadn't slept. Not really. He kept replaying the anonymous video in his mind. The board member caught on camera whispering, even if the code's his, the optics are bad. But Malik knew now, his presence was the threat. Not because of what he built, but because of what it proved. Mr. Jefferson, began the lead judge, a thick-necked man with a raspy voice and a Princeton tie. You're here today to clarify concerns regarding the authorship and originality of your submitted application. Think fast. Malik nodded once. Due to the volume of public discourse surrounding your submission, this session is being recorded and will be part of the official review record. He nodded again. The judge continued. You will be asked to demonstrate your technical knowledge, walk us through your application logic, and perform a live code task. No notes, no Wi-Fi, no ID assistance. Another board member, a woman with tortoiseshell glasses, added, We're not here to judge your background, Mr. Jefferson. Only your code. But Malik knew better. They weren't questioning his logic. They were questioning his right to possess it. They handed him a prompt. Build a time-based question queue that adapts difficulty after each correct answer. It was part of the backbone of Think Fast. The air in the room thickened. Malik opened the laptop, a temporary sandbox environment blinking back at him. Empty. No notes. No documentation. His hands hovered over the keyboard. Then dropped. He typed. Let question set. Let level 1. Let score you. Function Nikon question. Const filtered question set. Bill filter. Q with quad level. Const index math plur. Math random. E filtered length. Return filtered index.
Which?
Function answer question. Correct. If correct, score I. If score percent 30, ESOR level, EC1.
Wos.
Level, Math Max, 1, level.
He paused, adjusted, then added the timer logic. Then the cue history tracker. 15 minutes passed in silence. Only the clicking of keys. He hit run. The panel leaned forward. A simple demo app launched. He answered a question. The app adjusted, just like ThinkFast always had. It worked.
No bugs.
No lag. No doubt. The lead judge blinked. He leaned back in his chair, arms folded. We may have misjudged you, he said, voice lacking conviction but holding enough pause to register regret. Malik didn't smile. He simply said, I know. Jillian stood just outside the glass pane of the hallway, watching, hands clenched so tightly she barely noticed her nails digging into her palms. She hadn't been allowed in. Conflict of interest. But she'd waited, prayed, practiced breathing, like the outcome would change with oxygen. Tracy placed a gentle hand on Malik's shoulder. It's enough, she whispered. They can't deny you now. The board deliberated behind closed doors for 38 minutes. When they returned, the lead judge cleared his throat. In light of today's demonstration and supporting evidence, the board hereby votes to fully reinstate Mr. Malik Jefferson's finalist status in the 2025 State STEM Innovation Competition. He turned one page further. Additionally, by majority vote, we award Mr. Jefferson the State Innovation Recognition Award for technical creativity and educational advancement under independent development. The room did not erupt. It wasn't that kind of space. But Malik didn't need noise. He needed truth. And this, finally, was it. Outside, reporters waited. A small podium had been set up. Cameras ready. Mics hot. Malik stepped up, flanked by Tracy on one side, and Jillian on the other. Unofficially, defiantly, he looked directly at the press. They said the code was too clean for someone like me. Too advanced. Too polished. Too impossible. He said. But what they really meant was, too black, too poor, too alone. Flashbulbs popped. He continued. I didn't build ThinkFast to impress the board. I built it because every time I raised my hand in class, someone rolled their eyes. Because every time I taught another student how to do long division, a teacher told me to stay in my lane. Now he smiled. Not for them, but for himself. Well, this is my lane now. Back at home that evening, Aisha cooked her first real dinner in weeks. Pasta, red beans, cornbread, and an unopened can of peaches that had been sitting on the shelf for celebration only. They ate together. No screens, no headlines, just quiet joy. I'm proud of you, baby, Aisha said, not through tears this time, but pride. Steel, fire. You didn't just stand tall. You held the room up. Malik didn't speak, just nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. At midnight, Jillian sent one last email before logging off. It was to her former mentor at the National Education Board. Subject: one name you need to know. The only content was a link to Malik's code. The next morning, as Malik sat in his room trying to revise the app's multiplayer dashboard, his email pinged. He opened it absent-mindedly, still tired. Then he read the subject line. We want to fund your app in all Title I schools. National Education Equity Foundation. He blinked. Read it again. Dear Malik, your work has inspired not just students, but educators, community leaders, and school districts across the country. We'd like to discuss a pilot rollout of ThinkFast across Title I schools in 3 states, with the potential for national scaling by the end of the year. Let us know when you're ready. He stared at the screen for a long time. This wasn't just a moment. It was a movement. Malik scrolls down the email and finds a name in the CC field, someone he never expected to be part of the rollout team, Mr. Candler. Walking into Dunbar High felt surreal. The hallways weren't changed. They still smelled faintly of sanitizer and old textbooks, but everything else had. Malik Jefferson, once the quiet kid hunched over his coding projects, now walked the same corridor under the murmur of whispers and camera flashes. Where once he'd eaten lunch alone, eyes glued to his physics book, students now nudged each other and pointed. Teachers nodded as he passed. Some smiled. Coach Reynolds even offered a fist bump. Malik nodded back, but he kept his eyes forward. It wasn't showtime yet. That came later. Word had traveled fast. In the morning announcements, the principal read, Today at Tech Talk Day, we welcome a special speaker, our very own State Innovation Award winner. Suddenly, the library felt full, bursting with students from every grade, bulging notebooks open, phones prepped. A makeshift stage awaited him in front. A podium, projector, and cords bundled on a folding table. Photographers squatted near the front row. Malik stepped onto the stage and glanced out at the crowd. Locker doors rattled as more students squeezed in. He cleared his throat. "When I walked these halls a few months ago," he said, voice steady, eyes scanning the crowd, "I was invisible. I coded in a closet because I needed somewhere to belong. Today I stand here not because someone gave me permission. I took it." The audience shifted, leaning in. He continued, "Don't wait for permission to be brilliant." The line hung in the air, struck a chord, left no room for doubt. Afterwards, kids in tech shirts approached him. The robotics team, the math club, photographs taken, Snapchat names exchanged. One classmate looked him dead in the eye and said, "You changed the whole vibe here." That afternoon, Malik sat in the principal's office with his mother, Jillian, and Tracy Menard on speakerphone. The NCAA-type office door opened and a hand-delivered envelope arrived. The principal handed it to Malik. Inside was a sleek letter from MIT, their outreach scholarship committee. He opened it with trembling fingers. "We are proud to offer you the MIT College of Science Invitation Scholarship. Your achievements in independent innovation and educational equity stood out among thousands of applicants." Malik looked up at his mother, whose eyes glistened with silent tears of pride. He nodded, quiet. "We'll fill out the paperwork," Aisha said. "Year-round dorm, full fellowship. They're including travel." Malik exhaled, letting the warmth sink in. Later, in a quiet corner of the gym-turned-reception hall, Jillian approached Malik. He had just finished feng shuiing a display table of Think Fast posters and iPad demo stations for Tech Talk Day. They hadn't formally met off-screen until that moment. She extended her hand. "I'm Jillian. No titles, no hierarchy." He took it. "Malik." They stood and smiled, not as power dynamic coder mentor, but as equals who'd weathered something bigger than either had expected. "You did more than code," she said softly. "You redefined what we're allowed to expect from someone like you." He nodded. "We did it." They didn't need more words. That night, Malik lay awake in his childhood bedroom, the one with peeling paint and old test prep posters that his mom stuck up as decoration. His laptop was open, the Think Fast dashboard glowing pale green in the dark. He was tweaking settings for the national launch, Arabic language support, parental analytics, offline module expansion. He stopped and scrolled through old tweets mocking him. Chen ghetto code, poster boy stolen merit, and realized they'd coexisted in his feed. Now the newer ones celebrated his courage. Schools asking for licensing, reporters seeking interviews. The switch was dizzying. When his phone buzzed, he opened an email from foundationforeducationalequity.org. Subject line: "Would like to fund Think Fast rollout to all Title I schools expanding to 6 states." He smiled, but paused when he checked the CC line. Among the foundation staff in carbon copy was one familiar name: Mr. Candler, Dunbar Chemistry Department. Malik's breath hitched. The man who had once blocked his demo and smiled as his app failed was now listed as part of a launch team to bring his app into Title I classrooms. Malik blinked twice, unsure whether to feel betrayed or startled. The next morning at Tech Talk Day's closing ceremony, Malik stood in front of a banner reading, "From Trailer Park Closet to State Innovation Hero." He watched as his name appeared under spotlight, surrounded by applause. But the real twist hit when a student from the rival Atlanta STEM Academy stepped to the podium to do a demo of their own app. It looked familiar. The interface, the progression logic, even the adaptive difficulty, slightly rusted graphics, but unmistakable. Math Velocity. The student introduced it saying, "Our team optimized adaptive question logic for Title I schools." Malik's stomach dropped. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a rival app with eerily similar features pitched as if directly modeled after Think Fast. He looked at Jillian, at Tracy, at his mother. There were questions nobody had the answer to yet.
Was it a coincidence?
Was it a corporate copy? Or had Sandbar Ventures gone behind his back? Malik's phone vibrates. An anonymous tip: "Check the new app's GitHub logs. It just cloned your entire repo." The headline hit late that evening. Private firm launches Math Velocity AI. Strikingly similar to Think Fast. Reports confirm codebase cloned and scaled using AI and offshore contractors. No one knew who published it first. But within hours, educators, tech watchers, and civil rights advocates were sounding alarms. A viral thread called it academic identity theft, and professors posted side-by-side screenshots of Malik's ThinkFast GitHub history compared with the leaked Math Velocity AI repo. The public sided with him before he even publicly commented. Suddenly, ThinkFast wasn't just code. It was a movement. Nonprofits offered platforms, schools requested demos, and Malcolm Jenkins, a national STEM advocate, tweeted, "Thank you, Malik Jefferson, for showing kids that brilliance isn't built in your zip code." News outlets followed. One nationally televised segment aired 2 days later, showing Malik and Aisha seated on their worn couch. The living room was familiar. Cracked walls, handmade decorations, mismatched cushions. The reporter asked Malik, "How do you go from coding in a trailer park closet to standing up to a corporation and winning?" He paused, eyes steady. "Because I refused to shut up about learning in places they forgot. Because my app wasn't designed for the fancy. It was built for the left behind." He spoke not just as a coder, but as a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to fold under pressure. Aisha leaned over and whispered, "Your closet's still there, but you don't have to code in it anymore." Malik's smile was small, but it held a decade of dreams, doubt, and defiance. Across the country, school districts began piloting ThinkFast in Title I schools, thanks to seed funding from the National Education Equity Foundation. Tablet-based versions rolled out in Mississippi, Texas, and Georgia. In Washington, D.C., the Department of Education invited Malik to present ThinkFast at the annual Innovation Summit. Civil rights attorneys used his case as a precedent in conferences and talks. Newsletters featured his code as the template for fair intellectual property practices among underrepresented creators. He built this by himself in the dark, and they tried to erase him. It was the common refrain. And he didn't correct it, because it was true. But they had also failed to see the midnight oil, the revisions, the lonely upgrades, the undocumented hours whose trace lay in commit logs and live demos. 6 months after the finals, Malik traveled to his first TEDx youth conference in Atlanta. He'd never left Florence County before. Now he stood backstage with his cracked laptop, the same one he coded ThinkFast on, clutched like a relic, like proof. The green room buzzed with kids in collared shirts and conference badges, some shaking hands with startup founders. When Malik stepped into the hall, Nina Simone's Feeling Good riffed in his memory, though no music played. The spotlight hit him. He adjusted the mic. The audience leaned forward, curious. He opened the laptop and typed something live, a number conversion question. The screen thanklessly responded. He nodded. Then he looked up. "They said I didn't belong here, so I built something that did." There was no applause. Not yet, just silent realization. And then when the punch landed, it hit the room in waves. The applause that followed wasn't for a perfect demo. It was for a promise to be respected. No one should have to prove their humanity just to stay alive. If this made you angry, good. It means you still feel. Type yes if you believe this has to change. Subscribe if this broke your heart and you're done staying silent.